Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Dimitri Johnson, and you're listening to MMALatestNews.com.
It's time to roll, baby.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to MMA Latest. I'm Mitchell Ivey, and we are joined here by Jonny Rashman. How you doing, pal?
Welcome. Thank you.
No worries. We've had a fantastic weekend of fights. We've had UFC, we've had Bellator, but we're going to have a little bit of a discussion of the heavyweight division. We had Blaydes versus Junior dos Santos this weekend, and of course, Blaydes got a very good second round TKO win. Where does that leave him in the title picture?
Dos Santos, for me, where is he now? He's sort of a gatekeeper. What does he bring to the table? Apart from a name, he's just not the same fighter he was. Great boxer, great stand-up, but for me, he's just not in the top five, and it's the lack of depth in the division that is a problem for me. Yeah,
he came into this fight at number 4 in the rankings. He's probably going to drop out of that now. We've got Rosenstruck coming in against Francis Ngannou later in the year, or later on in March, but we have got Curtis Blaydes who's at number 3, and he's got two very good fighters ahead of him in terms of Francis Ngannou, Daniel Cormier, and of course we've got the champion Stipe Miocic, who doesn't seem to be interested in fighting at the moment. So out of those names, who would you expect to see fight?
There you go, the lack of depth in the division. Curtis Blaydes is number 3. I mean, it's not competitive, man. I mean, are you really excited to see him fight? What's the biggest fight in the heavyweight division at the moment?
Well, we've got a horrible square of opponents now, because Curtis Blaydes has lost twice to Ngannou, who's lost to Stipe. He got mauled by Stipe in a wrestling match, really, at UFC 220. So Curtis Blaydes can't really go to Ngannou and say, let's fight for an interim title, perhaps, if Miocic is out. Daniel Cormier, if he wants that trilogy fight, he said he's going to retire, whether he wins or loses, so that leaves the belt vacant. So it's really difficult. You've got John Jones tempting.
John Jones, he's the man, the heavyweight man. He has to step up. He's the only one who brings excitement to that division for me. You know what I think?
Yeah, I think Blaydes probably has age on his side. He's only 28. The rest are in their early to mid-30s. Of course, Daniel Cormier is 40 now, so he's going to be retiring this year, I'd imagine. If he wins the belt, you could see probably Francis Ngannou probably deserves the shot next, because he's, he put away Cain Velasquez, he's put away Blaydes, and he's put away Junior dos Santos with pretty much easy way. You're doing so. That powerful right hand that he's got is an absolute shovel, and it kills people.
Yeah, but what are we defining getting a title shot on now, having a few fights? I mean, it just, like I say, the lack of depth is frightening. You only have to win one match and you're already in the title picture.
Well, I know Cyril Gain, who's come through the Contender Series, I believe, and he's already in the 15th. He's 15th in the rankings at the moment. He's already looking at a title, being named as a title contender, perhaps.
There you go.
So it only takes one or two. Derek Lewis was in the title shot a couple of years ago. Rosenstruck, again, if he beats Ngannou, he's probably next. He's probably in the conversation for one, and he's only been around for a couple of fights in the UFC now. Although he's a terrifying monster.
Look at the names. If I go back 10 years, you're talking Lesnar, Cormier, Velasquez, dos Santos. Who else? Verdum. There's people Overeem. There's legitimate contenders. Now you're talking Derek Lewis. You're talking Curtis Blaydes. I'm not being funny, but who are they? No one knows them.
No.
Hardcore fan maybe, but do they bring any excitement to the division? Francis Ngannou does. I just don't think the heavyweight division is what it is. I think it's a lack of depth. I don't get excited for it. I don't even know who the next heavyweight fight is.
Well, it says a lot when you've got the likes of Tyson Fury flirting around with the division, and people in boxing, AJ's had talks about potentially coming over.
AJ, let's be honest, it's not going to happen.
The Lesnar return was on the cards. That's gone now.
It was, but what's he popping, Lesnar?
Who knows?
He's in WWE
with Velasquez.
He's fighting Velasquez in WWE.
That's where we are now in the heavyweight division.
That's where we are.
And it's only been,
we're watching WWE to get the excitement.
Exactly. It's only been fought for twice in the past 18 months, I believe, defended the heavyweight belt. So you can see there's a lack of challenges. There's a lack of desire for the champion to fight. But I think Miocic's manager, I believe, or his trainer, came out and said that he wants new blood. Now, Blaydes is the only one he's not fought in that top 5 rankings. So potentially that could leave them in good stead. But again, you say it's wrestler versus wrestler. They both haven't got the greatest striking, but they both got ability to finish the fight with a punch. It's an interesting fight. It's not the most glamorous fight of all time, but it's definitely one that I would be interested in seeing.
No, for me, let's go off the heavyweight division. It's boring, it's crap, there's nothing in it at the moment for me.
Something that is going on at the moment is Cyborg made her Bellator debut.
She did
this weekend against Julia Budd, and she looked phenomenal. She looked like against vintage Cyborg, not the Cyborg that we saw against Nunes. Although Nunes is an absolute monster.
Why did you say that though? Why did you say not the Cyborg against Nunes? What's changed?
I don't know. I don't know whether... I think her relationship with the UFC was one that was tainted. So whether she just didn't want to be there anymore and she didn't... Cyborg's an absolute warrior and a fighter, and she's got a heart of gold by the seams of it. But it seems like she didn't want to be there anymore. So maybe her heart wasn't in the UFC, and she seems a lot happier now at Bellator. Scott Coker and her, previous relationship at Strikeforce. And she became the first female fighter to hold 4 different belts in 4 organisations at featherweight. I
agree. It's a good accolade, but let's be honest, we're going through Cyborg's resume. The UFC is where it's at. I don't care who you are. The UFC is where the big fighters are, the most talented fighters. Who was Cyborg in the whole career? What names stick out on her resume?
Well, she's got Holly Holm. She thought Tonya Rethinger she beat quite easily. Nunes is probably the best out of that lot. Nunes obliterated her. But then again, look at the featherweight rankings in the females division over at the UFC. There's no rankings.
It's literally anyone can fight in the featherweight division.
Yeah, Megan Anderson's there. Felicia Spencer looked okay, but yeah, it's not a deep division. Bellator, Julia Budd made 3 defenses of the title before this weekend, and she didn't look her best.
She didn't look her best, but again, who's Julia Budd for? I mean, it depends what you're comparing greatness on. We were having a debate before about Ronda Rousey.
Yes.
Talking about her legitimacy in the UFC. Now, looking back with hindsight, how good was Ronda Rousey? When you put her against a good fighter, she came up short, man. She was staunched, but when she was first coming through, the lack of depth and talent was catapulted her to fame, to be honest with you.
You've got to say, the women's MMA has evolved so quickly, and you see the likes of Nunes. You see what Nunes done to Holly Holm and Ronda Rousey, and you see what Holm did to Rousey, and then you see the progress that Nunes has made over the past 2 years.
It's evolved. It's evolved, and it's getting better and better. But, I mean, Joe Rogan says it every week. They're the greatest. She's the greatest. You win 2 fights consecutively. You're the greatest of all time. Who would you think the greatest women MMA fighter actually is of all time?
I've got to say, you've got to say Nunes is on there. If you made a Mount Rushmore, you'd probably say Gina Carano's on there. You'd say Ronda Rousey.
I disagree with that.
Maybe just because of the legacy she made with Strikeforce, you put Cyborg on there, and I'd probably put Nunes right at the top.
But what we judging success on? Legacy or actual fights?
I think it's a mixture. With how early Carano came into the sport, she built the foundations with Cyborg, and then Rousey sort of built the house, we could say, and Nunes has almost completed it.
Nunes for me is the best. Nunes is a proper fighter. She's not a gimmick. She fights, tremendous stand-up. She is a fantastic fighter. Rousey, no. Carano, no. Cyborg, yes, Cyborg is, but she's tainted by popping. She's been done for popping before. That is tainted her career for me. When she did step up against Nunes, she was staunched. So how many top contenders, in my opinion, has Cyborg fought? If she's fighting a murderous row of fighters in the UFC and she's cemented that legacy like Nunes is doing now, then fine, you can say she's the greatest. Yes, she's won 4 different belts, but what are these belts? Yes, it's a good accolade, but who's she fighting?
Yeah,
I can't see him.
I can't take anything away from Cyborg. 4 featherweight titles in different organisations are great. One name that could be mentioned is Valentina Shevchenko. She's fighting at UFC 247. She looked very good against Jessica Ai. She, kicked her head off almost, and then she came up against Liz Carmouche and picked up a decision win. So she's someone who's in a division that's also still very young, but she's an absolute killer in that division.
She's fought good fighters. Look at her resume. She's fought Holly Holm. Yep. She's fought Nunes twice.
Decision losses, I believe, to Nunes both times.
So she's fighting proper fighters.
Yana Jędrzejczyk, she's beaten.
Correct. There you go. So you can say at the end of her career, you can judge her by those fighters. If she's going to Invictus and somewhere else and whatever else they're called, and she's winning those belts, I don't judge that as success for me. I really don't, as a legacy. That's why I think Cyborg's legacy for me is she's done a lot for women's MMA, but has she done it in the UFC? And the UFC is the pot of gold where you have to be there fighting.
Definitely, and someone who's big on legacy at the moment is John Jones. He main events UFC 247 against Dominic Reyes. What's the legacy that he's building so far?
Well, first of all, I don't know why the pay-per-view is on so close after a McGregor pay-per-view. Let's be honest, does anyone even know who's fighting as a co-main event?
That is Valentina Shevchenko, Caitlin Chookagian on that co-main. So we've got 2 title fights. John Jones, you know.
But is there a stir for it? Are people saying, I can't wait for this UFC event?
I think,
for me, there's not.
No, the light heavyweight division is a little stale at the moment. We had some names come up, Chris Weidman, Luke Rockhold.
It's completely dead.
Yeah, I don't know what you do with it. It makes a lot of noise that Israel Adesanya is his sort of biggest sort of nemesis at the moment in terms of their paths are crossing, and he's someone who weighs 20 pounds less than him.
There you go. You have to mix and match divisions, but there's a lack of depth fundamentally in the UFC. There's no pay-per-view fighters apart from McGregor. There's no one who stands out and you go, right, this is an event. When I'm watching McGregor, or I used to watch a Chuck Liddell fight or a Vanderlei Silva fight, I'm fucking ready. I've got the popcorn out, I've got the beer out. I'm ready to watch this fight.
You just got to look at Jones, Gustafsson, Jones, Cormier. We don't have those sort of targets anymore. Chris Weidman got swiped. Luke Rockhold got swiped.
Why though? What's the issue with the UFC building pay-per-view fighters? I've got my own theory, which I explained before, which I'm going to explain. For me, the Reebok deal, which it ends soon, doesn't it?
Next year, 2021.
For me, that was short-term pain, short-term gain for long-term pain. Reason being, the individuality of the sport has gone. There's no people. You mentioned Chuck Liddell. What's the first thing you think of with Chuck Liddell?
The Iceman.
You blew the Iceman. He does his signature with the arm out and all that. You think of Vanderlei Silva, you think of the axe murderer. When you think of fighters now, there's no individuality. They come out with the same Reebok crap gear, which is absolutely horrendous. It's got a little bit better, but there's no. For me, it's a snowball effect. It's taken away fighters' individuality of the actual sport. You don't think this fight. When you think of a fighter in your head, do you think Anderson Silva yellow shorts? I don't get that now. I don't even get that with John Jones. I think it's a knockdown effect from the Reebok deal. I think fighters not being allowed to wear their own shirts or the affliction gear, it may sound silly, but I think it makes a big difference. And you're seeing it now with the lack of pay-per-view stars. Apart from Conor McGregor, you tell me the next pay-per-view star in the UFC.
I think Masvidal's becoming one after his resurgence last year.
What numbers, though? What numbers is he doing?
Well, him and Diaz had a very good one. Obviously, I don't know what he pulled in on the Ashton cards because that was such a stacked card. I don't know what Masvidal brought in by himself.
But numbers, what? I'm saying hardcore numbers, like a McGregor numbers, like a Chuck Liddell numbers.
There
like
isn't a great one. I think Adesanya's coming up. I think Henry Cejudo is causing a stir.
Absolutely no chance. He's just not a pay-per-view star. Again, no one knows him. You go on the street.
Max Holloway, perhaps?
You ask 10 people on the street here, have you heard of Max Holloway? They'll say Max who? And you can say that about anyone in the UFC apart from McGregor. Yes, they're making the money, but for me, there is a problem with pay-per-view stars. There is not a there's not a Mayweather, there's not a Canelo apart from Conor, and he is the UFC man for me. Yeah,
and also I would say, these divisions are, for the past 3 years, there's always 2 or 3 divisions that are on hold. This year it's the light heavyweight division sort of on hold because there's no real talent there.
But when you say on hold, what do you just describe?
Where it's just been defended once a year or once every 18 months.
So there's consistency problems.
Yeah, the flyweight division has just been discarded. Cejudo came in and said he was going to save it. He's been relinquished of the title.
Now? They're
fighting on a fight night at Benavidez and Figueiredo.
They were talking about killing the
flyweight division. Flyweight, 125 pound. Once
they were talking
Demetrius
about
Johnson
killing that. I mean, what kind of sport does that? I mean, 1 minute they're killing it, the next. I mean, is it honours and not honours? Is it still people fighting in that division?
Somehow, I think Tim Elliott's in that division. He had a good win. But again, it's Benavidez, Figueiredo. We've got no Demetrius Johnson, who was really the pulling power in that division.
Yeah, but pulling power, Demetrius Johnson, he's bringing no numbers to the game. As much as a good fighter he was, the UFC would not have let him go. Otherwise, who did they swap?
Ben Askren, who's now retired.
So Demetrius Johnson was bringing absolutely nothing to the game. No numbers, no views. And his fights were boring. If you're a technical fan, yes, I do like that aspect of the sport. His fights were boring, man. They were snooze fests. Don't want to watch his fights now.
Any fights that you are looking forward to coming up?
For me, it's all about Conor McGregor. And I'm very interested to see who he fights next. Who do you think is?
I think it's got to be between Gaethje and Masvidal next.
Why Gaethje?
I think Gaethje, because if he wants that 155-pound belt or the rematch with the Khabib, he needs to beat Gaethje because Gaethje is putting the work in that division and is rightfully ahead of him at the moment. And it has to be at 155. I think if McGregor wants that title shot, he needs 2 fights in that division. I think he has to, really. Or he doesn't have to because he's Conor McGregor, but the right thing to do would be to fight 155.
The right thing, but I think for me, the welterweight scene is, I'd say that's the hottest division at the moment. It is, but it's full of killers.
I think Masvidal's the hottest thing at the moment in that division.
He's a fucking killer, Masvidal. But for me, McGregor goes nowhere near him. He doesn't fight him.
I don't know. I think Dana White planted that seed in head, saying that he's too small to fight Masvidal, and that's his.
Dana White knows that if McGregor fights Masvidal, he gets staunched. And I love McGregor. I'm a big fan. Too big, too powerful. And Dana White knows it. For me, it's set out for the Nate Diaz 3 fight. It's set up, it's promoted. That's what we'll see next, I think.
I think that's definitely one on the cards, whether it happens immediately, because they've always got that stored, haven't they? That's their go-to.
The story's there, man. The promotion's there. Do I really want to see the third fight? To be honest with you, no.
Nate Diaz didn't look great against Masvidal, really.
I mean, what is Nate Diaz? He comes 1 minute, he's retiring, 1 minute he's not. He's good. I mean, I'm a Diaz fan, but he's good at talking.
He's someone who can pull, but he doesn't fight.
He doesn't fight. 1 minute he's fighting, and he's retiring, and he's not fighting, and he is fighting. Fight regularly. And let's be honest with you, Nate Diaz, he's got the name, but he is not an elite fighter. He's a world-class fighter. He's not an elite. Every time he stepped up, he's been beat. He's been found wanting. Nate
He's maybe in that Cerrone class. Cerrone is a legend in the game. Almost one of those fighters that should have won the title but never have done.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
Right, Faber's up there.
He's got like a cult following, Diaz.
He has.
He's got that following. Where
he's got such a persona about him that you just seem to love him.
Tough motherfucker, man. He's so tough. I mean, who would you say the toughest people in MMA? I would say Diaz, obviously.
Diaz brothers are up there.
Diaz brothers are just ridiculous. Did you ever watch that Daily fight in Nick Diaz?
I haven't. No, I'm still quite a newbie to the sport. 205 was my first one, so I still got a lot of history work to do.
Go and watch Paul Daly and Nick Diaz. It was in Strikeforce. I've never seen a person physically knocked out. I think Daly caught with the right hand, face planted like Pacquiao was against Marquez. You're thinking this fight's over. He sprung up from the dead and won the fight. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous at the moment. But yeah, thank you for coming on, Jonny. I think we're going to wrap it up there, guys. We will have a watch along for the UFC 2007, of course. So make sure to be subscribed. Drop this video a like, and of course, share us on social medias, MMA Latest on Twitter and Instagram. And we will see you on the next video.